All Things Data podcast. In the spirit of Daniel Kahneman, Peter Diamandis, and Google Moonshots, brings together leading data scientists, technologists, business model experts, and futurists to discuss how to utilize, harness, and deploy data science and data-driven strategies to enable digital transformation. The hosts are Dr. Manjeet Rege, Associate Professor of Data Science, and Dan Yarmala, Director of Business Development of IoT and Data Science.
Hi, you're listening to the All Things Data podcast. My name is Manjeet Rege. We have some exciting guests here today. We'll be talking about the legal side of data and analytics, and I'll let my co-host Dan Yarmala introduce the guests.
Well, we have a great group of individuals. We have Dr. Higgins from Black Hills IP on the show with her colleague, Thomas Marlow.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
How's it going?
Great. Well, let's jump right into it. Tell me a little bit of your background, each of you. We can start with Dr. Higgins. Who you are, what your educational background is, and what are you working on today?
I'm Milena Higgins. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Black Hills IP. My background is a PhD in physics that somehow turned into me working in the legal world. Complete accident, but I've been in patent law ever since grad school, have loved the field. It's always a great puzzle to be solving. We are working today on docketing automation.
The tedious side of patent world. So before we get into that, Tom, maybe you'll tell us a little bit about your background and we'll dig into patents.
Tom Marlow, my background, or I guess my role here is Chief Technology Officer. Because of the amount of technology work that we focus on at Black Hills, Milena from the operations perspective and myself from the technology perspective end up working together a lot because the technology and the operations are just so tightly intertwined. Mm-hmm. In fact, Milena's got another title here, which is
Director of AI.
Yeah. So it gives you an idea of how much we, I guess, value or how important it is for in the day-to-day work that we do to have that technology.
So, but contextually, can you tell me your background, your legal background,
Sure.
And outside of Black Hills IP?
My background is electrical engineering, from their law, so I'm a patent attorney. I worked for a number of years as a patent prosecutor, which was interesting, but I had to do analytics along with that. So I spent a lot of time doing patent analytics along with prosecution work, and that drove me into an in-house position with the company Fairchild Semiconductor, where I managed the IP department there globally, which was a lot of fun because you got to focus in on one company and what we're doing in the US and what we're doing in China and Korea, and put together this strategy and apply some of the analytics that I was using for various clients now in one place, kind of this ongoing experiment to see how we can improve things. And then after my in-house gig, I came and joined Black Hills IP, and that's kind of brought me here today. Been with Black Hills for about four years or so now, working on our technology, what we can do to either provide analytics to our customers, provide automation to make things function faster with higher quality, fewer resources, more efficiently internally, and doing all that with the data that we have in the patent world.
Fantastic.
So let me turn to Dr. Higgins. You mentioned about having a PhD in physics. So from there into a legal firm and then into the working as an AI director. Can you talk about that path?
Yes, I went to grad school in physics thinking I'd be a college professor. That turned into Plan B, which later turned into Plan C by accident. I was looking for jobs in the medical device field here in Minneapolis. Saw a posting, this is back in the 90s, so I'm literally looking at paper postings, okay, this is pre-internet. Saw a job posting at a law firm, and normally reading through these job postings, if I saw a law firm, I would have completely just passed by it and gone to the next one. The only reason I stopped to read that ad was because I recognized the name of the law firm as a place where a friend of mine had recently gotten a job. Mm-hmm. So I read this job posting, and I realized that it had components of teaching, components of research, and this thing called patent law, which I knew nothing about, but I figured, hey, I know how to learn stuff. Why don't I apply and see where it takes me? So I landed this job doing patent litigation. So I was hired as at the time it was called technical advisor. My first day on the job, I got confused with a AV person. So imagine me, newly minted PhD, getting confused for an AV tech. I quickly went to my boss and said, we need to change the title. So we quickly changed the title to science advisor. never to be confused again. Later became the chief scientist of a group that was growing. Patent litigation in the 90s was just taking off and growing very rapidly. I just fell in love with the field. And I realized today, because we're doing so much automation at Black Hills IP, I've been automating ever since my days at Robbins Kaplan, that first firm that I worked at. I would do my daily job as a science advisor analyzing these patents. And I would have to do claim charts. And Tom knows, we talked about how tedious sometimes this work is. You have to map the accused device against the claim of the patent. And if you have 6 patents and 20 claims, you're repeatedly doing this. And so after realizing I was doing, I'd analyze the first one and then have all this material that I was literally cutting and pasting into a Word document. I said, this is nuts. This has to be automated. There's a waste of my time and a waste of our clients' money. So I went to my boss and I pitched developing a database for making claim charts. And he said, sure, go for it. So I went and taught myself how to program and access and built a database for claim charts. So that's kind of led me down this path of getting more interested in the business side of things. I ended up going back to school, eventually getting a management of technology degree. And AI a few years ago started kind of gaining hold, and I really got interested in it. I started reading everything I could get my hands on to kind of learn about what that meant to the legal field. I remember being at the ILTA conference, which actually Tom and Giles and I are going to next week.
Yeah.
One of the first ones I attended, the keynote speaker, a futurist, talking about AI and kind of what it could do for the legal field. And me kind of growing up in the world of patent litigation, I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, imagine what a Watson, an IBM Watson could do for litigation. It's just mind blowing. So when I came to Black Hills last summer, I started doing some consulting work. And after a few months of that, I came on board full time and have enjoyed the ride ever since.
Oh, great.
Well, to put it like this is this emerging field of legal tech. But before we go down the lines of the technology, can you tell us a little bit about what a patent is and what docketing is so that we could put this in context for the listeners?
Yeah. So, probably a lot of people have heard about patents or know about patents, especially in the technical arena, but some of the details are, not widely known. So a patent is essentially, it's a government granted right that gives you a limited monopoly. So you get 20 years, you get to be the only person or entity to practice your invention. And it's essentially a quid pro quo. So the government says, we're going to give you this right. In exchange, you've got to describe how you did it in enough detail that somebody else with about as much educational background as you could replicate what you're doing. And the idea behind that is, okay, if we can spread knowledge, that's going to, people can learn from other people what they've shared, and that's going to grow the knowledge base in the country or in the world and promote science and technology, which is great. So because it's a government granted right, it is inherently jurisdictional. So if I get a US patent, that patent is good within the confines of the United States. If I get a patent in China, it's good within the confines of China. And what that means is you can stop somebody from making, using, or selling within that border. So that means if I've got a really interesting idea that has, in today's globalized economy, that has implications in various parts of the world, I might have a lot of patents that I file on that thing. And so a lot of times you see portfolios, and I might start in the
big
US.
companies have big portfolios. Like we know IBM is the largest patent holder in the world, right? And so they, let's describe the market a little bit. Like, so we put a little more context. There's the corporate market, and then there's law firms, that persecute patents, right?
Right.
So that we can understand the context here.
Okay. So the corporations, or even an individual inventor, right, might be someone like you and I that has a great idea and just wants to go and pursue it. They have the invention and they want to file a patent on it and protect it. And unless you're a big corporation where you have patent attorneys in-house that are doing that, prosecuting of the patents, and prosecuting means arguing with the patent office to try and get your patent, which is a process. It takes years and a lot of back and forth. It's the law firms generally that are going to be doing that. And they're really good at dealing with the patent offices. That's their job. Coming up with the right arguments, knowing how to frame those the claims, which is the piece of the patent that is essentially the meats and bounds of your invention. So think about like you've got a deed for your house, and it says, my land is 50 paces northeast by 45 paces southeast by, et cetera, and it draws out a rectangle or some interesting geometric shape. Well, the claims at the end of the patent are what define that technical space of an invention. And that's where it gets really tricky, and why it takes so long going back and forth with the patent offices is because you write something and they'll say, no, that kind of covers this thing that already exists, so you can't have that. Then you go back and forth and you squeeze it in, or you tell them they're wrong, and finally you get to some point where you get something allowed. Well, all of that back and forth is paperwork and deadlines and due dates and forms that have to be filled in, and that's where docketing comes in. Because figuring out those dates and tracking all of those documents, that's not the work that, say, a patent attorney is, let's just say it's not the best use of their time, right? Yeah. They're good at formulating the arguments. We, Black Hills, comes in to help with the docketing and say, we can take those dates. They happen the same way for every customer, every corporation, every law firm that's out there. When the South Korean patent office rejects a patent application for X reason, the same deadline for company A versus company B. And so we look at that and we say, okay, well, this is a nice repeatable task. We can grab that date, put it on your docket and in the way that you want to see it, and we can do that for you so you can focus on what you're good at.
So this process of verifying if a particular invention has been filed before and somebody already holds a patent on that, has that been done in a manual way for years now?
Oh, the examination? Yeah. So that process, when that's done kind of in an official manner with the patent office, the examiner, they log into their databases and they run searches. And they formulate queries based on the language that are in those claims that, if I'm a patent attorney, I've submitted. And sometimes those are well thought out searches and they come up with great results. Sometimes it's just, oh, you used the word automobile and I found that over here, and it's not a very good application, but they send back the rejection and say, nope, sorry, I found those words that you had in this thing over here. And then as the patent attorney, you have to look at that and say, well, they're talking about something completely different. I see. Maybe you didn't read that thing before sending it along to us. But yeah, so it is, in a sense, pretty manual. There are some tools, like as a patent attorney, that I might use on the front end, where I might take the invention that I'm trying to protect and do some of that searching before I file it, so that I can get out in front of any arguments that an examiner might make. And there are some tools out there that try to, kind of in an automated fashion, grab some of that language and say, hey, maybe you should take a look at these things.
Right.
So, one thing, maybe Dr. Higgins, you could describe, how is it done today? How are the manual processes done today when you talk about docketing? Or you can describe docketing and how it's done.
Yeah, so if you're manually docketing something, let's say you're a solo practitioner or solo inventor, you could be literally just tracking those dates on a spreadsheet. And, something comes in, you put it on your calendar or in a spreadsheet on a list. So that's like the most rudimentary, basic form. Just think of a calendar or a to-do list. And then when you get to like a law firm that has multiple attorneys that are handling multiple matters, you work with a docketing system. And that docketing system is built to help you manage those dates. So when you get that rejection from an examiner, as Tom was describing, you would look at it, you would say, okay, my response is due 3 months from now. I'm going to log into this docketing system the fact that I got this office action today and that my response is due 3 months from now. And if I have dozens and dozens of these, then I can sort my due dates when I come into work tomorrow and kind of look at, okay, what's the next thing that's due the closest that I need to work on next. Mm-hmm. So it's basically a docketing system as a tool to help you manage your workflow and your workload. Like normally when people do this, you literally have a person, a docketer, who will sit and look at that received correspondence from the patent office and put that data into the system.
So this is where we're going. This is a paralegal type of person, a docketer, that's very, it has a certain cost and it's very laborious, right? We have to be very exact with documentation because we have to file with government agencies, and we can see almost like a gigantic decision tree of documents and dates and countries and technologies. And what are we up to? How many millions of patents? I recently read in the paper that we're up to now.
10 million.
So 10 million.
We recently reached that milestone, 10 million patents.
So
in the U.S.
In the U.S.
In the U.S., exactly.
So, I really look at this explosion of patents in China going on today with AI because that's where Manjeet and I are. So this, pivoting to you, Manjeet, this is a perfect opportunity for machine learning, machine guided, machine learning classification.
Absolutely. So with this manual process, I'm assuming there is a lot of boilerplate correspondence as well, which can be automated, I'm assuming, right? Can you speak a little bit about how automation, especially driven by machine learning and AI, can be used for docketing?
Yeah, so what we've done here at Black Hills is we've built what we call machine-guided docketing. Mm-hmm. We've taken a lot of those manual steps that people would do, and we've automated kind of in layers parts of it over the last several years. So an analogy that I'm going to use is think about TurboTax. Mm-hmm. If you're doing your taxes, you could pull out the actual form and you could look at your tax documents and fill in the form the old-fashioned way. Or you could go to a professional and you could do it that way. And the way that I prefer to do my taxes is that I log into TurboTax and I answer the questions. So it guides me through the process. Mm-hmm. It's basically an expert system that asks me the questions. I look at my documents. I still enter it manually. Our machine-guided docketing system is like TurboTax for docketing. So it guides our docketers through that process. It helps them reduce the number of decisions they need to make. It helps them pre-populate certain things. It calculates things automatically. So that's like the base layer that we've established here at Black Hills.
And how much more efficient is it, and how much more accurate is it?
I don't have the numbers for machine-guided docketing off the top of my head, but I know that from the foundation of our company, we were founded to solve a quality problem. We were founded because the law firm that's our biggest customer was having a problem with outsourcing their docketing outside the U.S., and they were noticing that, yes, the labor cost was cheaper, but the quality of the results they were getting was poorer, so they had to spend a lot more time and money fixing those problems. So they formed Black Hills IP to try to solve that problem with technology and automation.
So it was born out of a problem. There were cost pressures, like for this process of the legal bill, let's say, or persecuting a patent. And this process is laborious, error-prone, expensive, and very human. But we see there's a finite number of options, when we think about a relational database or machine learning. The efficiency and the costs go up to let lawyers work on what they should be working on, right? Exactly. The actual claim itself.
Yeah. And an example, if you think about a docketer sitting there to pick from the different number of activities they might want to docket, a docketing system might literally have 100 plus of these docketing activities. And so if you're docketing something, you have to look through a list of 100 plus things to find the one that you need. Our system will take the document that you're looking at. It'll reduce that number to maybe 3. So you then as a person have to pick of those 3 items. So you can imagine how much faster and less error prone that is, because instead of that person like getting tired of looking through the list and picking miscellaneous,
right,
they'll look at the list of 3 and go, oh, I need this one.
So this entire process, which has been automated, is that a customer facing experience which has been automated, or is that an internal paralegal process that has been automated?
Great question. It's for Black Hills IP, it is our internal process, so It is not customer facing.
So the customer basically has an appointment, somebody internally, and then there's a knowledge transfer or whatever he would like to file a patent on, and then from that point onwards, there's an automated docketing process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we basically monitor the data that comes from the patent office on our customers' behalf.
And that's because our customers will generally come to us having already selected the system that they use to manage their docketing. There's a number, maybe a dozen of companies out there that provide these docketing systems.
I see.
So they're fancy schedule and document management systems designed specifically for intellectual property law.
Uh-huh.
And so they've got the system and they say, we want you to handle the data that's coming in, populate it into this system. That's going to be our interface.
So you still end up using their system. It's not as if you're taking the documents out from their system and then putting it in your automated docketing. Is it? Or
to a certain extent, what we're doing, in some cases, we interface electronically into their system to grab the data from the documents coming in, process it, push that data and the documents into their system.
Okay.
In some cases where there aren't as clean electronic interfaces into the system, we'll still do all that processing and then set it up for very, how would you call it, simplified data entry?
Yeah.
Data entry that's going to be less error prone.
Mm-hmm.
We'll try to take as much of that potential for error out of the equation. In some cases, we might even use robotic tools like Selenium to push some of that data into systems that are, I guess, less easily interfaced with.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an outsourced docketing services for firms and corporations.
Yeah.